All right, I'm hitting record. 3, 2, 1. We're good to go. Hello, and welcome to the Gonzo Experience. So glad you're here. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing some heartbeats with us today. I truly appreciate it. I'm blessed. There's a lot of podcasts out there, folks. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe we're over 1 million podcasts now in America, and you are with me right now. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to make it worth your while today. I have, this is a repeat guest. I have very few encore guests. But this guy, I'm telling you, when I had him on before a couple of years ago, my podcast numbers went up so much. I don't even know what it's like. What's past quadrupled? It's way beyond that. So I want to welcome back to the show, JeVon McCormick. JeVon, welcome to the Gonzo Experience.
My man, Dave, what is going on? So you said this is the Gonzo Experience. So if you're Gonzo, I want to be Animal.
Hey, all right. I like that. Animal was great. Yeah. It's funny you say that. Quick little story. So when I was at school, I did chorus, right? And I couldn't sing anything, but everybody, if you want to do chorus, you are in, right? And so we did a bunch of songs from the Muppet movie back in the day, and because it had just come out, right? I'm showing my age, and so the only singing part that I had is I was Animal. So I would like,
nice.
During the pauses of the songs, I'd be like, so I was awesome. Animal. And then I went to college and they gave me a fraternity nickname of Gonzo and hence the Gonzo Experience. A lot of people still call me Gonzo. And certainly maybe it's because of my nose and I look like Gonzo the Muppet. Speaking of Muppets, it's still going on here. So here we are. But so JeVon, now, so if people, I want to tell all the listeners, the Gonzo family here, the first podcast we did, and it's, if you want to just go find it, it's on Spotify, Apple, just search for it. It was an incredible podcast. JeVon shared his story, and the majority of that interview was his journey and how he got to where he is today. Certainly, if you didn't hear that, I want to have JeVon give kind of an abbreviated version of that. It's such a great story. I don't know how you abbreviate it. And I say great, I mean like wholly impressive, journey of where JeVon is today. But JeVon, and last time, this is part of the journey. Last time we spoke on my podcast, you were going by JT. So we can talk about that as well. Yeah. So I'm going to stop talking. JeVon, are you?
Oh man, Dave, where do I start with that? I mean, give me a direction. I mean, I got my background.
You were born in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh man. Okay. So yeah, born in Dayton, Ohio. My dad was a black pimp and drug dealer. He fathered 23 children. And I always clarify for people, my dad was a real life pimp. He put women on a street corner, they sold their bodies, and my dad took every dollar. And as I said, along the way, he also fathered 23 children. So I'm one of 23. My mother, my dad was black, my mother's white, and my mother was raised in an orphanage, a 1950s institutional orphanage where the kids were abused, beat, neglected because no one knew they were in there and no one cared. And so when my mother turned 17 years old, they gave her $20 in a suitcase and they said, good luck to you. And there was the world. And one of the first people she met was my well-dressed, quite a bit older, fast-talking father. And so those are my parents. My mother, matter of fact, I have my mother's last name, McCormick. When my mother was in the orphanage, she got the last name McCormick. She has no clue where or why she got that last name. So I have this last name now, and I to this day don't know where it came from. Oh man, Dave, along the way, this, man, I've eaten out of trash cans. I grew up on welfare. I've watched my mom. I've watched people spit in my mom's face and call her a nigger lover because she had a mixed race child. I watched us be kicked out of public housing because my mom had a mixed race child, and I was in and out of juvenile three different times. And let me preface this because many people will say juvenile detention, and they say that to try to lessen what it is. It's juvenile prison. And it's just prison for kids. And so whenever someone tries to say, oh yeah, juvenile or juvie, no, don't try to soften what it is. It's juvenile prison for kids. And I'll never forget when I got put in solitary confinement for 2-3 days, and those gentlemen put me in there. Like, you're stuck. You don't know if someone's coming back for you. It's pitch black, and it sucked. And so, and I do my best to highlight that, because so many people just hear, oh, he was in juvenile 3 different times. No, it was juvenile prison. And so, I was sexually molested by one of my dad's prostitutes at the ages of 6, 7, 8 years old. That had held a big effect on me throughout my life. And as you know, Dave, as far as education, all I got is a GED, man. There's no college degree. And so here I am, man. I've been blessed that I've taught myself how to make a ton of money in the stock market. I've lost a lot of money, made it all back, been the president of a software company, can't write code. And now I'm the CEO of a publishing company and can't spell. So God bless America.
That's it. We're done. What a great story. Well, I believe it was your third time in juvenile prison, we'll call it. Something happened to really turn things around. Is that right?
Yeah. When I was leaving, huge gentleman, he gets down on his knee and he says, son, come here. And it was one of the corrections officers. And he looks at me and he gets right in my face and he says, if you come back here again, you're going to man prison. Man, Dave, I'm 49 years old, man. To this day, I tell people, I don't know what it is, but the term man prison doesn't sound right. No, who wants to go to man prison?
That sounds scary. That sounds scary.
That kept me out of, because it just sounded like the way he explained it to me, it sounded worse than juvenile prison. And I couldn't even imagine, like, man prison, there's levels to this. There's something worse than this. And so that gentleman kept me from going to prison, because it was then I was like, okay, I'm not going to man prison.
Yeah. You ever find out who he was?
And go, man, like, that's one thing. I don't have a lot of regrets in life. I've got some things I'm remorseful for, but I don't have a lot of regrets. And I would like to have been able to say thank you to him.
Yeah. Well, that was a godsend, right? Godsend moment. Turn your life in a different direction.
Totally.
So I would love to just really get some life lessons from your experiences, because people would totally understand based on, the hand that you were dealt as a kid, no fault of your own. If, you were angry, felt like a victim, wanted revenge, and led just a much less desirable life. But as we're going to learn more, you've gone into just an incredible path of success, personally, professionally. But why you? Why do you think that you're not that person I was describing, angry and
man, so I've never been the victim, Dave. I do not play the victim card. Even when I was a kid, I never did the why me thing. Oh, yeah. Why me? Why was my dad a pimp? Why was my mom an orphan? Why have I gone without food? Or I never did the why me, the victim. Oh, this is somebody else's fault. In fact, I get so many people who say this to me, Dave. Oh my God, you had every reason to fail in life. You had every reason not to succeed. And I always push back. I go, no, actually, I had every reason to succeed. Because if you can get through all that shit, the rest of this is pretty easy. But to your point, I was never a victim, man. But for years, I was angry. And for years, I was very revengeful. I had, and my revenge was more in the form of something to prove. And I didn't really give a damn who I was proving it to, but I was just proving things. And so, revengeful in the form of, I was proving myself, and then just angry. A lot of times angry just because I didn't always know what to do. And that's why I was angry. Some of the life lessons that I did not learn along the way. To this day, I read incredibly slow. Thank God for Audible and 1.5 speed. I still don't hold a pencil the right way. I'm man enough to admit, I've got 4 children, so I read a lot of books to my kids. I struggle sometimes with children's books, and it's sometimes I literally I have to ask my wife, okay, what's this word? And so I was angry at times and revengeful in the form of needing to prove myself, but never a victim. Never. Like I said, even as a kid in the middle of it, I never even was a victim when that prostitute was sexually molesting me. I cannot recall ever feeling sorry for myself, saying why me. Never.
What are some of the things that you do? Because you're your energy is tremendous. It's so positive. Like, you fill the room with joy when you enter, right? Like I even felt you in the airport in Atlanta. We ran into each other. Right? I'm like, oh my God, there he is. Like random occurrence, right? And I just felt the love. So how do you is this just natural, God-given extra serotonin in your brain, or do you have some instigated practices that you do to stay positive and moving forward?
I don't know if they're practices, but I make it a point to be positive. The world's got enough negativity in it. I don't need to put any more in it. And it's a choice, Dave. It really is. You can choose to wake up mad, angry, pissed off. You can choose to wake up timid, meek. I choose to wake up confident and positive. The fact is somebody didn't wake up this morning. So right off the bat, if I woke up and my feet hit the ground, okay, I'm ahead of a lot of people. So I always take a mindset of gratitude, being positive. There's always a positive in a negative situation. Sometimes it's hidden and you got to find it. So for me, I live by a formula: mindset, choices, and hard work equals success. We all have a choice. Are you going to be positive? Are you going to be negative? It's your choice. Are you going to work hard? Are you going to be lazy? Your choice. But, mindset. Alarm clock goes off at 4 a.m. I can go back to sleep, but I say to myself, wow, there's somebody that would do anything to be able to get out of bed right now. I have that incredible gift and luxury. So I jump up out of bed and head to the gym. And then choices, again, you can choose to be positive. You can choose to be negative. And some people will say, oh, it's not that easy. Yeah, actually it is. Are you going to be positive or are you going to be negative? And when I look at my background, I don't feel sorry for myself. And I choose to look at what gifts I was given going through that background. Matter of fact, since you touched on it, Dave, myself and our head of finance, we were just talking, hour ago. And we were talking about investing in a couple of stocks that I had recommended, and they're doing well. And I made the comment, I go, man, life is just excellent. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got 4 healthy children, a beautiful home. I get to serve people here at the company. And if I had to go through my childhood 5 more times to get to where I am today, man, I'd do it.
Wow. What a statement. Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah. I mean, this is, I live in a gated community. My kids go to private Christian school. There's a pond in my backyard. And I say that not to brag. I say that because I've seen the other side of life. I know what it's like to put bread bags on your feet because you have holes in your shoes. I know what it's like to get dressed in front of the gas stove for a little bit of heat because your electricity's turned off, or you don't have water, or to have to try to go pick food out of a trash can over the weekend because you're not going to eat again until you get your free government lunch on Monday. So I don't say it to brag. I'm very, very happy. I know I'm blessed. But hell yeah, I'd go through all of it again. The sexual molestation, my dad leaving me, juvenile. Man, I'd do it 5 times over. If I knew the end result was where I am today, sign me up.
Yeah. From what I see is just such incredible gratefulness. And I remember, a couple of years ago when you came to Rochester to graciously speak to our junior achievement event. and that's how we met. I'm on the board, and I asked you to come, and you said yes. And I'll never forget that. All the way from Austin, Texas to lovely Rochester, New York in the winter. Thank you. And we were talking, I thought I like the snow, and you're like, wow, I haven't seen this in a while. I'm, Dayton, it's been a long time. You talked about that you used to put bags on your shoes, especially when there was snow out, right? And then you were looking down at I believe you said, very expensive shoes, we'll say. And what a difference from plastic bags to some designer Italian shoes, right? But you said something that I will always remember, and I love it, and I say to people all the time, that you weren't complaining about the cold because there were people that morning that could not get out of bed. Maybe they were sick with cancer, and they're not healthy enough to get out of bed to experience the cold weather, to experience the snow. And man, would they love to. They would love the opportunity to just go outside, get some fresh air, and enjoy the cold weather. And that stuck with me. Like, I have never complained about cold weather again. Like, I'm blessed. I am blessed that I get to get out of bed, get dressed, and go experience this cold weather, right?
Yeah. I mean, think about that, man. Even this, let's say for whatever reason you don't park your car in a garage, and you wake up the next day and the ice is on the windshield and the snow and everything, and you've got to scrape it off. The fact that you have a car to scrape the ice off of is the blessing in itself, because I remember where my mom and we'd have to go sit on the bus stop in 20-degree weather and wait for the bus. Like, we would have given anything to have been able, and so many people will stand out there and complain as they're scraping the ice off the windshield. I'm like, hey, we would have gladly scraped ice off of a windshield.
You would have loved to have a windshield.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What we had was the one in front of the bus.
What a great perspective. What a great perspective. No, thank you for that. So now I want to talk about where you are today. So was it 3 or 4 years ago, the two founders of, at that time, bookinabox.com were, I'm going to say, just wickedly smart enough to hire you and say, all right, bring us to the next level. Right. Yeah. And like you said, I love how you just say it. Like, you have your GED, you can't read that well, can't write that well, yet you are now CEO of arguably the most successful self-publishing company in the country, if not the world. Is that correct? Fair to say,
and you know, that's very, very fair to say. It's here's something that's funny, Dave. I've actually been here 5 years now, man.
It's been 5 years.
5 years. So the company is 6 years old. I got here. The company was 13 months old when I came on board, and man, it's been incredible. Here we are, 5 years later, almost 70 people. We've worked with over 1,900 authors. I mean, a lot of our author, David Goggins, the ex-Navy SEAL, or the former Navy SEAL, because I don't want to disrespect, I guess, always the SEAL. Yep. So David Goggins, the Navy SEAL. Let me make sure I get that right.
Yeah.
But Nassim Taleb, who did the Black Swan, we're working with Chris Voss right now. Never Split the Difference, and that one of my favorite, the Nobel Peace Prize committee. I mean, come on, if our quality is good enough for them, we've got it covered. So it's been an amazing ride where we're 100% self-funded. So there's no debt, no loans, no private equity, no venture capital. And I make the joke, I said, yeah, we don't have any fictitious valuations. We actually have a real bottom line. I said, right. So that's a unicorn, a 6-year-old company, no outside capital, that's profitable. There's your unicorn.
That's because they got JeVon.
Man, as I said to Tucker when I first met him, no one person makes a company great. It takes a team of people to make it great. And so no one works for me. Everyone works with me. I'm no more important than everyone else in the organization. Yeah, I make some decisions. Yeah, I move some obstacles. But at the end of the day, I'm only as good as the great people I get to serve.
What is your superpower? Like, what do you do so well over there that has allowed this company to explode? Besides, I'm going to say, I know you're going to say empowered the great people. And that's because that's the man that you are. So thank you for that. But what about you? Like, there's a lot of great leaders that empower great people. But what do you think that you bring to the table that has been, some of the secret sauce for the company?
I'd say truly, I know this comment, this term's been kind of hot over the last few years, but the beginner's mindset. I'm not a writer. I don't. So when I see a situation, I'm approaching it truly like a kindergartner. Like, okay, why do you do that? Well, then why don't you do it this way? Well, what about that? And so it's that mindset. And then I constantly, I just love to learn. Here's how I boil my life down, Dave. God, health, family, business, and investing. If it doesn't fall within that, I don't do it. And what's important around that is what that enables me to do is I'm constantly studying business, leadership, the economy, because I love those things. I love studying business and leadership, why people made certain decisions, why the company went that way instead of this way. So the love of learning, curiosity, and I'll throw in anticipation and forecasting. I'm pretty good with, but at the end of the day, truly, serving people, putting people first. That's if there was a superpower, it's what they gave me a term. They said social intelligence is what they said that I'm really good at.
And being extremely good looking.
I mean, I like to think I'm okay. I like to think I'm all right.
You're a good looking guy. You're a good looking guy. So for those that haven't heard of Scribe Media, and maybe you've heard a little bit about it, and tell us about it. Tell us about what makes you guys unique as a company, because there are a lot of self-publishing companies out there, right? And but you guys are you're killing it, and you've got packages that will say are somewhat affordable to, we just talked about a package that you have, it's $120,000, right? And everywhere in between. That's because you're premium. You're doing really beautiful work. Anybody that's watching this video, JeVons in this conference room right now, and there's bookshelves behind him, and there's beautiful books. It looks like he could be at a Barnes and Noble store, and so you're putting out a top-notch, high-quality product, high-quality experience for your customers, the authors. But tell us a little bit more about what makes Scribe Media a little bit different.
If you gave me one word, quality, and that's really what sets us apart. And here's something very, very interesting, Dave. We all know traditional publishing, your Random House, your HarperCollins, Penguin, so on and so forth. And then everybody knows self-publishing. And I say this respectfully. We refer to self-publishing as, okay, you print off some pages, you run down to FedEx Kinko's, you staple some stuff together. But what we did was we carved our own lane, and we refer to ourselves as professional publishing. We're not self, because if you, like you said, if you look at our books, you don't know if it was traditionally printed or if it was professionally printed. David Goggins, he hit Wall Street Journal, New York Times, USA Today, and we've got 16 other authors that did the same thing, and they did not go traditional. So we've proven the point that you don't have to go traditional to be successful with your book. And again, one word, what it all comes down to is quality. Not only do we give you a quality book at the end, we also provide a phenomenal author experience as you're going through the process. Because here's the thing, you work with us for 9 months. That's a relationship. And so the relationship's got to be one where it's a phenomenal author experience. People are paying us $40,000, $120,000. It's got to be a great experience. And at the end, it's got to be an incredible quality book.
Do you also teach them on how to, once the book is in their hands, that's where a lot of authors fall down. You teach them, all right, here's your book, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Jones. Goodbye. I imagine you don't say that, right? You teach like
we used to, man. We were a one-trick wonder. We would do a book, and hey, there we go. We're done.
Good luck.
Yeah. So over the years, what we started realizing is people write a book and do a book for what the book can do for them. It may be a legacy piece. It may be, I'm doing this book for credibility, thought leadership, lead generation, but the book serves a purpose. You know this, Dave, with me. I never wanted my book to be public. I wanted 5 copies of it. I needed it to be a legacy piece for my great grandchildren. So that was my purpose. pull back the curtain a little bit, we've got a subset of authors, about 100 of them, who have never sold more than 150 copies of their books, but all of them have landed 6 and 7 figure contracts for their business. So the book served them exactly the way they wanted it to. And that's what we focus on is, okay, why are you doing the book? So now that we figured out, okay, great, we can do quality books, then we started focusing on the author marketing piece and then marketing those books to bring that attention to the book and to the author of, if they're looking for lead generation, more business, maybe they're selling their course, whatever the case may be, that became the emphasis after we published the book. But first and foremost, we don't even talk marketing until we know we have a quality book in hand, because we're not going to market garbage.
Yep. That's fantastic. What, it's funny. I ask this question a lot of my guests, and this is a funny question for you. What are some of your favorite books?
Wow. So obviously I got to go with David Goggins. And the reason is it's not so much because, people, of course he's going to go with David Goggins. Actually, it's the audiobook. Like I said, I read it incredibly slow. If you listen to David Goggins' audiobook, it was the first audiobook that was ever done where the narrator reads the chapter. And at the end of the chapter, the narrator and David actually talk about the chapter. And that was the first time that had ever been done. And it's incredible. And so I really like the format. Again, especially for me, I read very slow.
So what's the name of that book?
You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. So that one was good. We just did the book for the former CEO of Chipotle, Monty Moran. Really good book. It's on culture and some of the things that he implemented when he was at Chipotle for 10 years. And then I'd say my one that I really enjoyed, Janice Bryan Howroyd did a book with us. And why that was such a special book, she is the first Black woman in America to own $1 billion company. And most people think it's Oprah, and it's not. It's Janice Bryan Howroyd. And so that was really an honor to get to meet her. And what I appreciated about it as well for me personally is she has 2 mixed race children. So it was just the whole situation was really awesome to be a part of.
That's excellent. Well, thank you for those. And I imagine we can find those on Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble, et cetera.
And now I got a whole group of authors pissed off at me because I didn't say their book.
I know. Well, what'd you say? 1,900 authors. So it's tough.
Yeah, I got a lot of people are like, hey, you didn't mention my book.
Hey, well, you can tell them that you didn't mention your book, which I see behind you above your right shoulder. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, it's funny. It's it's not one of my favorites. It's my story, so it's not really, it was done because I want my kids to have a legacy. Like I said, I don't even know where my last name comes from. So I want my grandkids.
You're not the McCormick Spice family, fortunately.
No. Well, if I am, can someone please let them know? I mean,
you're spicy, but that's all that is from your last name, right?
So yeah, I just want I'll say it this way, Dave. I don't know why more people don't do legacy books. By time you have great grandchildren, those great grandchildren are probably left with only 2 to 3 half-assed stories. Some of it's lost in translation. And I've always been shocked, I guess, because I come from no family, why more people don't have legacy books. So, by the time you get to great grandchildren, they can remember who you were and what you did and how you got there. So, yeah, it's always intrigued me that more people don't do legacy books.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, all my grandparents that came over from Italy, I would love to be, read their story as, growing up peasant kids in Sicily and having the courage to leave everything that they knew and travel to a new land where they didn't know anything and didn't speak the language. I mean, I would love to feel what they were experiencing through a book or, a story. So no, very good point.
Hey, you know what, Dave, I got to share this with you. You don't know this. You gave me the book. You sent it to me of the autobiography of Mr. Eastman Kodak, Mr. Eastman.
Oh, George Eastman, yeah.
George Eastman. And you sent that to me. And I remember when I opened it, that book is damn near as thick as the Bible.
It is. It is. It's literally 600 pages. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember how intimidating it was to me because of how thick it was. But what intrigued me is, like I said, I'm a student of business. Dave, that book took me well over 18 months to get through because I read so slow, but I read that book.
Wow.
And because,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I'm a student of business. I like to see what people did, where they came from, why they made the decisions, why they went left when they should have went right. And so, yeah, I read that book, but it took me 18 months to read that book, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Well, George Eastman is very happy that you did that. So what a story too, huh? Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, two more questions. And I forgot to ask you this to clarify when we were talking about your journey as a child. So I had mentioned last time we spoke, I thought your name was JT, right? People called you JT. And then more recently, I believe in the past year-ish, now you go by JeVon. So tell us about the name change, or actually the change back.
The reclaiming of my name. So back in my early 20s, I'm out there trying to get my career started and land on people's calendars and get appointments and things of that nature. And for the life of me, I just could not get on people's calendars. One gentleman was kind enough to take my call. And the first thing out of his mouth was, "Hey, how did you get a Black first name and an Irish last name?" Well, here I was in my early 20s. I didn't even know my last name was Irish at that point. So I was just excited, like, oh, wow, my last name's Irish. Yeah. But then when we hung up the phone, it hit me. I was like, oh, you're seeing my name first, and that's why no one's giving me appointments. So my full name is JeVon Thomas McCormick. So I said, okay, I'm going to start going by JT. Dave, the next week, man, I started getting on people's calendars. I started getting appointments.
Wow.
Because no one could, JT McCormick, who's that guy? And so for, my early 20s until last May, June, I went by JT McCormick. And the reason why I had decided to reclaim my name, JeVon, and start going by JeVon again, had everything to do with what went down between the George Floyd murder, and then also the protest after, and more importantly, the fake ass status signaling shallow shit that was going on afterwards, where people were Blackout Tuesday on social media. I'm like, what does that do to advance anyone? How's that helping the cause? And half the people were only blacking out on social media because they didn't want to get called out in case they didn't. And so that was really status signaling. And I thought, that's a joke. And then we were arguing over a syrup bottle. Like, okay, what's that doing to progress anyone? So then I read a piece, and it said that there were only 3 Black CEOs in the Fortune 500. And I was like, interesting. And so I went and looked them up, and here are the names: Marvin Ellison, Kenneth Frazier, and Roger Ferguson. So 3 very ethnic free names, if you will. And I love all 3 of these guys because they made it to the top of their game. So this isn't a knock on them, but those were 3 very ethnic free names. Even think of it this way: the wealthiest Black man in America is named Robert Smith. And so when you looked at those names, I'm like, wow, okay. And then it hit me. I'm like, okay, I became the CEO. And there's no CEOs named JeVon. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to start going by JeVon. And I didn't do it for me. I did it because for every kid that grows up like me, that grew up like me, the Martavius, the LaQuanda, the Lucretia, the Rayvante, I wanted them to see, hey, guess what? There's a guy out there that has the Black name, JeVon, and he made it to the CEO chair. And my thought was, maybe one day when they're in the workplace, they can work next to a JeVon and a Rayvante and a LaQuanda, not just a JT. And so that became the whole movement for me that, okay, I'm going to reclaim my name, JeVon.
Well, and I like it too, because there's such meaning behind it. There's a strategy and significance behind it, right? As opposed to blacking out someone's profile on Facebook, right? I mean, so
Oh, man, that I can,
yeah,
we're calling out Uncle Ben's on the rice box. I'm like, come on.
yeah,
I mean, there's such massively important issues of things that can be addressed, and we're going to the most shallow
yeah,
status signaling. A rice box, come on. And here's what was interesting. I said this to my wife, full transparency, my wife's white, and I said this to my wife. I go, I bet you the fool that made the decision to take Aunt Jemima off the syrup bottle, or Uncle Ben's off, never took the time to think that, I wonder how many minorities actually buy this product because there's a person of color on the box. Because I know we did. When I was a kid, that was a big deal to me, to buy something that, oh, wow, there's a brown person. I'm brown. Let's get this one. Right. And so it's funny. I wondered, did anyone take the time to ask that question?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. And now it's gotten out of hand, right? Dr. Seuss is off limits. We can't watch Dumbo anymore. I mean,
Mr. Potato Head. I'm like, we're canceling Mr. I'm like,
right,
Mr. Potato Head. You got to be kidding me.
That's a whole other podcast, right? Cancel culture podcast. That'll be a whole other topic. I know, but it's crazy. And then they're going to start coming after Italians. They're going to get rid of Chef Boyardee, and then we're just really screwed, right? So.
Oh man, yeah, it's I guess I just feel that let's put our energy and efforts behind actual real change, not just, like I said, status signaling shit. We're not progressing or doing anything because we're not going to call them Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head anymore. Come on.
Right. Yep. It's getting a little hysteria.
You know what's funny about that, Dave, real quick, is I tell people this, because I get a little bit of pushback, and then people are shocked when I say this to them. I said, look, man, if you want to talk about race, before you go down that path, just remember, growing up mixed race in America, for me, one, I wasn't even legally allowed to be born in this country until 1967. Mixed race was illegal until 1967. I said, I just barely made the cutoff. I said, so the other piece of that is, you don't know what it's like to be half white, and white people don't like you because you're half black, and to be half black and black people don't like you because you're half white. And you were never black enough. You were never white enough. Black people called you Uncle Tom and sellout. Black people called you wannabe white boy. White people called you nigger and didn't want you around. And so you were never black enough. You were never white enough. And I tell people all the time, I go, the next time you start thinking you want to have a cancel culture conversation, start thinking about those things, because that's actually how you move and progress, is when those type of issues are willing to be spoken about. Stop hiding behind the acronym D&I. It's diversity and inclusion. Don't abbreviate it. And when you say diversity, let's point out what we're actually talking about. So many people hide behind the word diversity, and what they're actually saying is people of color. Then come out and say it. People of color. Diversity, because it doesn't hurt as much to say diversity as it does. Yeah, we're really slipping on this people of color thing.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, and for you to say this from where you've come from, it's very real, and it's very impactful. And you're basically talking about, come on, people, let's put our shoulder into this problem instead of tiptoeing around it. What I say, pussyfooting around it. Let's deal with the issue and not these little outskirts of it. So I love it. Let me know when you're going to run for president. I am so going to help you. I'm going to do whatever I can, man.
Yeah, I am full transparency. That is a role. Someone said that here. Hey man, you should run for mayor. Yeah. I want nothing to do with.
Well, a lot of famous leaders didn't want to be leaders, so we'll see what happens, right?
I rather lead in the private sector, man. I can do more in the private sector to create change, make money, do things for organizations than in the public sector. It's just, it's sad that we can't even, I mean, look at the post office.
I know. Yeah, I know. It's hard to, right? It's like, oh, yeah. So last question.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to ask you this. If you could go back in time and meet somebody that's not alive today, and they're not related to you, who would that be and why?
Wow, back in time. I got it right off the bat. I can tell you, I know you're only going to give me one, but there would actually be three for me. The first one, if you only gave me one, though, would be John D. Rockefeller.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Why?
Right. I am just fascinated. Someone told me this, and it led me to read his story, his autobiography.
Titan.
Yeah, Titan.
I read that.
It led me down. And when I heard about how his dad was basically a hustler like my dad back in the day. He had multiple families, other children, and wasn't around, would take off and leave, didn't know when he was coming back. And I was like, and someone had said that to me, go, hey, your dad was a lot like John D. Rockefeller's dad. And then they said, you're kind of a lot like John D. Rockefeller. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I'm like, how? and so I'm like, okay,
I'll take that, right?
Yeah. I'm like, well, let me get into this. And so, I just took a deep dive into all things John D. Rockefeller and became just amazed at what he did, Standard Oil and his way of thinking. And really, when I study it, I read it and I'm like, oh, of course he thought of that. Like his way of thinking was different. And I just remember I felt so humbled that someone said that I reminded them of the John D. Rockefeller story. And that really meant a lot to me. It's one of the best compliments I've ever been given. And so, John D. Rockefeller. The other one would be Andrew Carnegie. And the last one would be George Westinghouse. A lot of people don't realize this. George Westinghouse was the only person, the titans of those eras, the Rockefeller, the Carnegie, the Ford, the Vanderbilts. George Westinghouse was the only person who's the people who worked with him never went on strike. The only one. He's the godfather of the modern day weekend. He would give people Sundays off. If you think about it, Andrew Carnegie had people work 364 days a year. And a lot of people think, oh, yeah, he probably gave them off Christmas. Nope, it was 4th of July.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Andrew Carnegie, the people went on strike. John D. Rockefeller, Ford, all of them. No one ever went on strike with George Westinghouse. And George Westinghouse, many people don't know this, left Thomas Edison to go work with Westinghouse, because Westinghouse, if you worked with George Westinghouse, he allowed you to keep your patents in your name. Thomas Edison. So a lot of the things that people celebrate about Thomas Edison, those were actually created by someone else. And Thomas Edison took the patents and put them in his name. George Westinghouse said, hey, you can come work with me.
Wow. People
worked with him, not for him.
Love that.
And so he said, you can come work with me, keep the patents in your name, and you're free to invent here. And so they sparked up a really great relationship. He founded the air brakes in trains. He founded drilling for natural gas. And when he passed away, the people that worked with him built a monument for him. And that became, for me in leadership, I'm like, okay, that's how you actually do it. He was the first one that had a doctor on site, a nurse on site. And so many of the things that we celebrate, the tech companies that we think they're innovative and they did some shit, Google and all that. George Westinghouse was doing it back in the late 1800s. So I'm a big George Westinghouse fan. And then the last one for John D. Rockefeller, I'll jump back over to him. Many people don't know this. Your HBCUs, historically Black colleges, Spelman University is actually named after John D. Rockefeller's wife.
Wow. Because he gave so much money.
He actually bought the land that the school is on. And wow. So, and they were, Dave, help me out here, abolitionists, where they did not believe in slavery, correct?
Yep.
Make sure I got my right word there. But yeah, John D. Rockefeller did not believe in slavery. So the whole story of John D. Rockefeller became very intriguing to me. And I will own it. I love conglomerates. And so what he built was just fascinating that he was able to do that. So I know that was a long answer, Dave, but hey, I had to share it.
I love it. Well, and if you don't mind, I'm going to add a PS to it, because we were talking about George Eastman.
Yeah.
And you probably know this because you read the book, but here's a guy. He never got the status of Ford and Carnegie, but he was one of the richest guys in the world back then as well. And now Kodak is certainly a different company than it is today, but they had a good 100-year run of being one of the leading brands in the world, right? And all from Rochester, New York. I mean, back in the day before internet and airplanes, et cetera, he was all over the world, right? And it's like this today. Employees never unionize. There's no union at Kodak, never has been. And that's because much like Westinghouse, he treated the workers so well.
Yeah.
Dental clinics, medical clinics, great pay, great benefits. He turned Rochester. I just read, I'm rereading the book right now. It's funny you say it about, George Eastman biography. He was trying to, in the early days of Kodak, he was trying to recruit some high level players to come to Rochester to work at Kodak. And they weren't interested. Rochester, especially back then, was a small town, right? And then he realized, like, I have to turn this city into a great city. People want to live here. And he started, some people still call it Kodak Town, because we have one of the best philharmonics in the world. We have the third best music school in the world because of it. It's full of museums. We have incredible colleges. We have incredible schools. He started what is now the United Way. First chapter here in Rochester, New York. It was called Community Chest. George Eastman started it, became United Way. So and I'm just naming like a very small handful of some of the things that he did, but he realized that he needed to make Rochester a great city that his employees would love living here. Right. And then forget about what he did within the company then for them as well. The Kodak bonuses are legendary. My father worked at Kodak for 30 years. Christmas time, he'd get a big fat bonus every year. And, he was extra happy during that time, so, so you just made me think about, I want to go meet him. So thank you for that.
Nice. Yeah. That's who, when you said they can't be related, that would definitely be, would be the people I'd want to meet.
Yeah. Well, JeVon McCormick, I am once again honored and excited that you're my friend. Reached out to you a few years ago. I heard you on Stephen Westner's podcast. I go, I want to meet this guy. You said yes, interviewed you. I called you to come to Rochester to speak at a junior achievement event that we were doing for, it was an entrepreneurial event for youth in our city. You came up, you did it, knocked it out of the park. Within, I think, 6 months ago, because of COVID, the Urban League of Rochester was having an event, and they couldn't do it in person. But you volunteered your time and spoke on the Zoom conference, and you've done so much for everybody and me in Rochester. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing, and I really appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate you sharing some heartbeats with me today.
My man, Dave, of course, man, you know the routine. You call, I will always answer. So it was still to this day one of my favorite things, because I never knew this, is when you drove me around Rochester, and you in a very quick fashion, because we had to get to the airport, but you gave me history. Like I didn't know the Underground Railroad went through Rochester. I didn't know that. And so just the history you gave me of it, that'll always be a memorable moment for me. That was really touching to be able to have that moment, drive around with you and hear about the city.
Well, I got to come back. A lot more to do. We'll go to the Susan B. Anthony Museum. We'll go to Frederick Douglass's grave, and we'll do a lot of different things. We'll go get a garbage plate. That's one important thing we'll do as well. So,
nice. Well, I appreciate it, man. This was great.
Thank you. And if people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, learn about Scribe Media, just quickly, what's the best way to get in touch with you and your company?
I only do one social media platform. I'm on LinkedIn. I find it to be the most professional of all of them. So I'm on LinkedIn, and then scribemedia.com, or if you're just looking for me direct, you can go to JeVonMcCormick.com is my personal website.
Excellent, John. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And I wish you continued massive success.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Appreciate you as well. Gonzo family sharing your heartbeats with me today. Make sure to have a great day and stay awesome.